When friendship turns into love, tonight, my best friend became my fake lover. Hello everyone. Before we begin today's story, I have a small favor to ask. Please hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our channel's new romantic and dramatic stories. It is quick, free, and truly the best way to support us in bringing you more heartfelt tales that remind us how love often hides in the most unexpected places. Your support means the world to us. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below because we love seeing our audience from around the world. Thank you so much. Now, let us return to our main characters. The rain had been falling since morning, soft and steady, blurring the city's skyline outside the café window. Inside, the low hum of conversation mixed with the gentle hiss of an espresso machine. At a corner table near the window, Lucas Stone, a 33-year-old interior designer, scrolled through his phone, his brow slightly furrowed. The message from his mother blinked on the screen again. "You are not coming to your brother's wedding alone, are you?" He sighed, rubbing his temple. 3 days. That was all he had before the wedding weekend in Vermont. 3 days to find someone to stand beside him, smile for the photos, and convince his family that he was doing just fine. He had built a successful design firm, bought a modest but beautiful apartment, and yet somehow, in his mother's eyes, he was incomplete without a woman at his side. The doorbell above the café jingled, and a familiar laugh floated in. Maya Carter, his best friend for 8 years, stepped inside, shaking the rain from her umbrella. Her paint-stained tote bag swung against her hip, and her cheeks were pink from the cold. She spotted him instantly, waving with that same bright, effortless smile that had lit up his college years. "Hey, stranger," she said, sliding into the seat across from him. "You look like a man calculating the end of the world." Lucas smiled faintly. "Feels about right." "Another client nightmare?" He hesitated, glancing out the window before meeting her eyes. "Worse. My family." "Oh, that is serious." She grinned. "What did they do this time?" He took a deep breath, drumming his fingers on the table. "They think I am incapable of showing up to my brother's wedding alone. My mother keeps dropping hints about how everyone will be curious. You know what that means." Maya laughed. "That you are still single and too focused on work?" He pointed at her. "Exactly." Then, almost under his breath, "So I need a favor." Her smile softened. "What kind of favor?" Lucas leaned forward, lowering his voice as if the words themselves might embarrass him. "I need a date for the wedding, just for 3 days. Someone my family will believe is my girlfriend." Maya blinked. "You are joking." "I am completely serious. Think of it as a contract. I pay for everything: travel, hotel, the works. You just have to smile, hold my hand occasionally, and convince my mother that I am not a lost cause." She stared at him, half amused, half shocked. "Lucas, that sounds insane." He chuckled nervously. "Probably. But you are the only person I trust enough to pull it off." Her eyes softened at that. For years they had been each other's constants: late-night calls, bad dates, small victories. She knew his habits better than anyone else. Still, pretending to be his girlfriend? That was dangerous territory. "And what do I get out of this ridiculous plan?" she teased, raising an eyebrow. He leaned back, thinking for a moment, then said quietly, "I will sponsor your art class for the kids, the one you told me the community center cut funding for." Her breath caught. That program meant everything to her, the small group of children who painted hope with borrowed brushes. "You are serious?" Lucas nodded. "Completely." Silence filled the space between them, broken only by the rain tapping gently on the glass. Maya looked down at her coffee, stirring it slowly. He was asking her to cross a line they had never dared to cross. Friendship had always been their safe place, steady, comfortable, simple. Finally she looked up, meeting his gaze. 3 days, huh?" 3 days, he confirmed. She smiled, shaking her head. "You owe me big time, Stone." He grinned for the first time that morning. "Deal." Outside, the rain kept falling, but inside that tiny café, something shifted quietly, invisibly. A small current of possibility hummed between them, the kind that made even old friends wonder if the line between friendship and love was ever truly clear. The weekend came faster than either of them expected. Early Friday morning, the train to Vermont cut through miles of green hills and quiet towns still waking under pale sunlight. Maya sat by the window, watching the landscape blur past while Lucas scrolled through his notes, rehearsing the details of their story. "So, just to review," he said, glancing at her. "We have been dating for 6 months. We met at an interior design exhibit, and your favorite color is blue." Maya smiled faintly. You remembered that part. I am trying to make sure we do not get caught, he replied. She laughed softly. Lucas, relax. It is not a corporate pitch. It is your brother's wedding, not a courtroom. He exhaled, leaning back in his seat. You do not know my family. Kundo. When the train slowed into the small station, the air smelled of pine and fresh rain. Lucas's mother, elegant and brisk, greeted them first. Her sharp eyes scanned Maya from head to toe, before her lips curved into a polite but curious smile. So this is the famous Maya, she said, pulling her into a brief embrace. Lucas has mentioned you many times, though somehow he forgot to tell us you were dating. Maya kept her composure, smiling with genuine warmth. I guess he was waiting for the right time. The woman's eyes softened. Well, you are very welcome, dear. Lucas caught Maya's quick glance. She was already saving him with her calm confidence. He mouthed a quiet, thank you, and she gave a tiny, almost imperceptible nod. At the family estate, laughter and clinking glasses filled the wide-open living room. Lucas's younger brother Daniel hugged him tightly before turning to Maya. So you are the woman who finally got my brother to stop living at the office? Maya chuckled, guilty as charged. The room broke into light laughter, and for a brief moment, Lucas's anxiety eased. She was perfect at this natural, funny, believable. Later that evening, as the rehearsal dinner began under strings of soft lights, Maya wore a navy dress Lucas had helped her pick out. She looked radiant, simple yet graceful, her hair pinned loosely to one side. The family gathered around a long table, the scent of roasted herbs drifting through the air. His aunt leaned in. Maya, what do you do for work, dear? I teach art, she replied with an easy smile. Mostly children. I help them paint the things they wish they could see. The table went quiet for a heartbeat, surprised by her sincerity. Even Lucas's mother looked moved. That sounds wonderful, the older woman said softly. Maya nodded. It is. They remind me that beauty is not about perfection, it is about kindness. Lucas glanced at her, pride flickering across his face. He had always admired the way she spoke, not to impress, but to connect. Across the table, a woman with perfectly styled hair watched them with narrowed eyes. It was Clara, Lucas's ex-girlfriend, and one of the wedding guests. She leaned toward another woman and whispered something, her lips curling into a knowing smirk. Her phone lifted briefly, the faint sound of a camera click hidden beneath the chatter. As the evening went on, Lucas reached under the table, brushing his fingers lightly against Maya's hand, a silent thank you. She squeezed his palm once, just enough for him to know she understood. When the dinner ended, they stepped outside for air. The night was cool, filled with the soft hum of crickets. Maya leaned against the wooden railing of the porch, looking at the sky. You did great tonight, she said. He laughed. No, you did. My mother adores you already. That is dangerous, she teased. She might start planning our real wedding. Lucas smiled but did not answer. The moonlight caught her face, and for the first time he realized how familiar and new she looked all at once, like a song he had known for years but never really listened to. Maya turned to him, her voice gentler. We are still just pretending, right? He hesitated a second too long. Of course, he said finally, though his eyes told a different story. Somewhere in the distance, music drifted faintly from the rehearsal tent. The night was calm, the air thick with something unspoken, and as they stood side by side, neither of them noticed Clara's phone screen glowing in the dark, capturing a single photo, their hands still intertwined. The next morning arrived, wrapped in sunlight and the faint scent of coffee drifting from the kitchen. Maya woke to the sound of soft laughter downstairs and the low hum of conversation. She stretched, still half caught between dream and memory, then remembered she was in the guest room of Lucas's family home, living inside a story they had created together. When she came down, Lucas was already there, wearing a white shirt and a nervous smile. His mother stood beside him, arranging flowers, humming under her breath. The kitchen smelled of cinnamon and fresh bread. Maya, good morning. Mrs. Stone said warmly. I hope you slept well. We were just talking about the vows Daniel and his bride wrote. They are so young, so full of hope. Maya smiled. That is the best part about love, I think. Believing in something even when you cannot predict how it will end. The older woman paused, studying her. You are wise for someone your age. Lucas caught Maya's eye and mouthed a quiet, thank you again. It had become their unspoken code over the past 24 hours, tiny gestures to keep their story alive. After breakfast, preparations for the ceremony began. The backyard transformed into a dream. White chairs lined with ribbons, a small stage framed by lanterns, music floating from the open tent. Maya helped the bridesmaids arrange the final touches. Her hands steady but her thoughts tangled. She kept replaying last night's moment on the porch the way Lucas had looked at her under the moonlight. It was not scripted, not part of the act. Something real had flickered there, and that frightened her. By afternoon, the house filled with guests. Cameras flashed, laughter spilled through the air. Lucas stayed close to her, playing his role effortlessly. They looked perfect together, like a couple everyone rooted for. "Smile for one more photo," he whispered, placing his arm around her shoulders. His hand lingered just a second longer than necessary. She tilted her head toward him. "You are enjoying this too much." "Maybe," he said, smiling. "You make it easy." Their eyes met, and for a moment, the crowd disappeared. But then the flash of another phone cut through the air. Clara again, standing near the dessert table, recording silently with that same calculating expression. When the ceremony began, Maya sat beside Lucas, beneath a canopy of soft white fabric. The couple exchanged vows that spoke of faith and second chances. The music swelled, and when the groom kissed his bride, everyone applauded. Lucas turned to Maya with a wistful smile. "They look happy," he murmured. "They are brave," she answered quietly. "It takes courage to promise forever." He looked at her, his voice lower. "Do you think we ever missed our chance? You and me?" Her breath caught. "Lucas." Before she could finish, applause rose again, as the newlyweds walked down the aisle, saving her from answering. Later, during the reception, Maya found herself surrounded by relatives asking endless questions: how they met, what Lucas was like at home, whether they planned to move in together. She played her part flawlessly, weaving small truths into their invented love story. Yet each time she said "we," her chest tightened a little more. Out of the corner of her eye, she saw Lucas talking to his father near the bar. He looked proud, lighter than she had ever seen him. But when their eyes met across the room, his expression softened in a way that told her he was not just pretending anymore. The evening sun dipped low, scattering gold across the lake. Children ran through the garden chasing bubbles while the music shifted to a slow, tender tune. Lucas walked toward her, extending his hand. "Dance with me," he said simply. She hesitated, glancing at the guests. "Lucas, your mother. She is watching," he said softly. "And right now, this is what she expects from us." Maya placed her hand in his. His palm was warm, steady. As they moved together under the fading light, the world seemed to pause. Every step felt like a confession neither of them was ready to make. When the song ended, they stayed close for a heartbeat longer, unwilling to break whatever spell had formed. Then, applause rose around them, and the spell shattered. That night, as the house quieted and the guests drifted away, Clara uploaded the video she had been saving. The caption read, "Lucas Stone and his girlfriend, or is she just acting for the weekend?" The clip showed their porch conversation, the lingering looks, the staged affection. Within hours, it began to spread online, and while Maya slept peacefully, dreaming of the dance and the way he had held her, the truth was already out there, ready to test everything they thought they could control. The next morning began with silence, thick, uneasy silence, that seemed to stretch across every hallway of the Stone family home. The sunlight was soft, but the air carried a different weight. When Maya stepped downstairs, she could feel it immediately. Glances, whispers, the sharp tone of a phone call ending too quickly. Lucas was standing in the living room, his mother's phone still in her hand, her expression pale with disappointment. The family group chat had exploded overnight. The video had spread quickly, Clara's smug caption, the comments questioning whether Maya was just a hired date. It was everywhere. Mrs. Stone looked at her son, her voice cold but trembling. "Lucas, is this true? Did you bring this young woman here under false pretenses?" Lucas opened his mouth, but words failed him. "It is not what it looks like." "Then tell me," she interrupted. "What is it?" Maya froze by the doorway. Every face in the room turned toward her. The laughter and warmth from last night were gone, replaced by confusion and quiet judgment. Lucas tried to speak again. "Mom, it started as a misunderstanding. I did not hire her. Maya is my friend. I just..." "Just what?" his mother pressed. "You lied to your entire family?" Maya stepped forward, her voice steady despite the tremor in her chest. "Please do not blame him. I agreed to come because he wanted to protect you from embarrassment. That is all. None of this was meant to hurt anyone." The room fell quiet. His mother studied her with eyes that were both sharp and sad. "You seem like a good person, Maya, but this family has been humiliated. Do you understand that?" Maya nodded slowly. "Yes, ma'am. I do." She turned to Lucas, her heart breaking a little at the sight of him, shoulders tense, eyes full of guilt. "I think I should go." He stepped closer. "Maya, please, just wait." She shook her head. "The contract is over, Lucas." The words hung heavy in the air. Without another glance, she walked out into the morning light. Outside, the air was cool and sharp. She could still hear the faint echo of the music from the night before. Her hands trembled as she hailed a cab, watching the house grow smaller in the distance. Lucas stayed behind, caught between defending her and repairing the mess. His mother's voice followed him. "You have always been responsible, Lucas. I raised you to be honest. How could you let this happen?" He wanted to say the truth, that somewhere between pretending and protecting, he had fallen in love. But how could he explain something even he barely understood? Hours later, the wedding festivities carried on, but he could not bring himself to stay. He drove back to the city in silence, the road stretching endlessly ahead. The image of Maya's face as she walked away replayed in his mind again and again. When he reached his apartment, he found the napkin in his wallet, their handwritten contract. The ink had smudged slightly, but every rule was still visible. Rule number 5 stared back at him. No catching feelings. He laughed bitterly under his breath. Too late. Across town, Maya unpacked her small weekend bag, placing her art supplies back on the shelf. The tiny apartment felt emptier than usual. She picked up her sketchbook and began to draw without thinking, just lines and shadows at first, then two hands reaching for each other but never touching. By evening, her phone buzzed with a dozen missed calls from Lucas, all unanswered. She could not face him yet. She could not face the humiliation, the guilt, the aching truth that maybe what had started as a favor had become something she no longer wanted to pretend about. That night, the city lights flickered outside her window. She sat by the glass, watching the rain start to fall again, soft and slow. For the first time in years, the sound did not comfort her. It reminded her of that morning in the café, of his half-smile, and the promise neither of them ever meant to break. Lucas, alone in his apartment, opened his laptop and typed an email. The subject line read, "For Maya's art class." He attached a funding proposal and sent it to his lawyer. If there was one thing he could still do right, it was to keep his promise. Then he looked down at the napkin again, tracing the words with his thumb. "Rule number 5, he whispered, folding it carefully. "I am sorry, Maya, but I think I already broke it." Outside, the rain continued, washing the city clean, while two hearts, miles apart, sat awake in the quiet, both wondering if friendship had just become something too real to undo. A full week passed before either of them spoke again. The city kept moving as if nothing had happened, traffic lights changing, shop doors opening, people laughing in cafes, but for Lucas and Maya, everything had shifted. Maya spent her mornings at the community center, trying to lose herself in her work. The children she taught were innocent, bright-eyed, and full of questions. They had no idea that their teacher's smile was something she had to rebuild each day. She painted with them, guided their hands, and told them stories about how art could turn sadness into color. But when class ended, she would linger by the window, her fingers stained with blue paint, staring at the rain clouds forming again over the skyline. Lucas, meanwhile, buried himself in his office. His team noticed the difference, his voice quieter, his focus uneven. He still showed up, still led meetings, but the warmth was gone. Every sketch he drew ended up half-finished, abandoned before the ink dried. He missed the sound of Maya's laugh, the way she turned ordinary words into something worth remembering. One evening, he met Daniel for coffee. His brother looked at him carefully before saying, "You should call her. You owe her that." Lucas shook his head. "After everything, she deserves peace, not another apology." Daniel leaned back. "Then show her, not with words." The thought stayed with him long after his brother left. 2 days later, Maya returned to the art center to find an envelope taped to the door. Inside was a letter written in Lucas's handwriting and a document folded neatly behind it. "Maya, you once said that beauty is not about perfection. It is about kindness. I never forgot that. I wanted to make sure your art class never loses its light again. Enclosed is the formal endowment for your program. It is in your name, not mine. You do not owe me anything. You gave me more than you know." Lucas. Her hands trembled as she read the rest. The document was real, a signed commitment from his company to fund her community art classes for 5 years. She felt the world blur for a moment, not from sadness but from a quiet, aching gratitude. Later that night, she sat at her desk, looking at the sketch she had drawn days earlier, the two hands almost touching. She picked up her pencil and, for the first time, let the lines meet. Across town, Lucas stood by the window of his apartment, staring at the city lights. He replayed every moment in his mind: the caf, the train, the wedding, the porch. He still had the napkin folded in his pocket. He had read it so many times the ink was fading. His phone buzzed once. A message from Maya. "Thank you for keeping your promise. The children will be so happy." He typed a reply, then deleted it. Nothing felt right. Words could not fix what had been broken. But he smiled anyway, because for the first time, she had reached out. The following day, Maya hung a new sign at the art center door. Free art classes for children and families, sponsored by the Stone Foundation. The kids clapped and cheered, and for a brief moment, she felt something like peace. Yet when she locked up that evening, she noticed the sky turning the same soft gray it had on the morning they met at the caf. The memory came back in full color: his voice, his nervous smile, the way he had said, "Just 3 days." She whispered to herself, almost like a prayer. 3 days that changed everything. In his apartment, Lucas poured himself a cup of coffee and sat in silence. The city moved beyond the glass, alive and loud, but his world felt small without her. He unfolded the napkin once more, tracing the last line with a faint smile. Rule number 5, no catching feelings, was now crossed out completely, a small heart drawn beside it. He whispered into the quiet, "I am already in love, Maya. I think I always was." The rain began again outside, gentle and steady, as if the city itself understood the sound of two people learning what love truly meant. 2 weeks later, the city had settled back into its usual rhythm, but inside both of them, something still echoed quietly, a space left unfinished. Maya's art classes had become livelier than ever. The children painted, laughed, and created murals on the walls, filling the room with color and noise. Yet each time she picked up a brush, she thought of the person who made all of this possible and the silence that remained between them. On a Thursday afternoon after class, Maya was cleaning the tables when Mrs. Thompson, the director of the community center, called out from her office, "Maya, there is someone here asking for you." Maya turned, expecting one of the parents. Instead, standing by the doorway with a hesitant smile, was Lucas. He looked different, tired, but calm. The raincoat he wore was damp at the edges, as if he had been standing outside for a while before gathering the courage to walk in. "Hey," he said softly. "I was nearby and thought I would stop by. I hope that is not strange." Maya's pulse quickened, but her voice stayed gentle. "It is not strange. I just did not expect to see you here." "Alda." He looked around at the colorful room. "You did all this?" "The kids did most of it," she replied, glancing at the paintings. "They like to fill empty walls." Lucas smiled faintly. "Looks like they learned from their teacher." The moment stretched between them, warm but fragile. She handed him a towel. "You are soaked." He accepted it, drying his hands. "I saw the new sign outside. The kids seemed happy." "They are," she said. "So am I. You kept your word." He nodded. "I meant what I said. You deserve that support." For a while, neither spoke. The hum of rain filled the silence. Finally, Maya folded her arms. "Why are you really here, Lucas?" He took a deep breath. "Because I needed to see you. Because I did not want that last moment, the one where you walked away, to be the last memory we share." Her throat tightened. "You hurt me, Lucas. Maybe not on purpose, but it still hurt. Everyone saw me as a liar, and I started to believe it myself." "Teaser." "I know," he said quietly. "And I am sorry. I should have protected you. I should have stopped it before it went that far." She looked down at the table, tracing a spot of paint with her fingertip. "We made a rule, remember? Rule number 5, no catching feelings." He laughed under his breath, the sound soft but full of regret. "I failed that one completely." Maya met his gaze. So did I. They both smiled, sad and knowing. After a long pause, Lucas said, "There is something I want to show you. It is not far. Will you come with me?" Curiosity flickered in her eyes, but she nodded. They left the center and walked together through the rain-washed streets. The air smelled of earth and wet leaves. He led her to a quiet corner downtown, where a new gallery sign glowed softly in the evening light. Inside, the walls were filled with paintings from local artists, portraits, sketches, children's artwork. At the center hung a single framed piece, her own painting, the one titled "Friendship Feels Like Falling in Love." Maya's breath caught. "How did you get this?" I asked the director, Lucas said. "She said you had painted it but never planned to display it. I thought the world should see it." Her eyes shimmered, reflecting the soft glow of the gallery lights. "Lucas, you did not have to." "I wanted to. he interrupted gently. This gallery is part of a new program. Half of the profits will go to fund art for children. I wanted to name it after you, but the board thought the Kindness Project sounded better. She laughed quietly, wiping her eyes. It is perfect. Lucas looked at her then, really looked, and the noise of the city outside seemed to fade away. Maya, I do not want to pretend anymore. Not about who we are, not about how I feel. Her heart pounded. And how do you feel? He took her hand slowly, like friendship was just the beginning. Like I have been falling for a long time, and I do not want to stop. Maya's eyes filled with tears, not of sadness but relief. For once there were no rules left between them, no lines to cross. Only honesty, standing quietly in the light of everything they had already survived. Maya stood there, still holding Lucas's hand, unable to find words. The glow from the gallery lights painted soft reflections across the glass, wrapping them both in a quiet that felt sacred. She wanted to speak, but her voice trembled somewhere between fear and longing. Lucas, she whispered finally, what are you doing? He smiled faintly. Something I should have done a long time ago. The rain outside softened into a mist, the sound gentle against the windows. Lucas stepped closer, his voice steady now. I do not expect anything from you, Maya. I just needed you to know that I am done pretending. What I felt for you, it was never just friendship. It was always more. I just did not know how to name it. Her eyes filled with tears, the kind that come from a mix of love and ache. You really think we can go back after everything? After what people said? After the lies? No, he said simply. I do not want to go back. I want to start over. For real this time. The truth in his tone disarmed her. She looked at him, at the sincerity in his eyes, and felt the wall she had built around her heart begin to soften. Before she could answer, the door to the gallery opened. A small crowd stepped in, several of her students, holding tiny paper flowers. Mrs. Thompson followed behind them with a proud smile. Surprise? One of the children shouted. We wanted to see your painting, Miss Maya. Maya blinked, surprised. How did you? Lucas laughed gently. I might have invited them. I thought it would mean more if they saw what you created. The children ran around the gallery, pointing and giggling. One little girl tugged on Maya's sleeve. Miss Maya, are you happy? Maya crouched down, smiling through her tears. Yes, sweetheart. I think I finally am. When she looked up again, Lucas was watching her. There was something in his expression, peace, pride, a kind of quiet certainty. After the children left, Mrs. Thompson stayed behind for a moment. She turned to Maya and whispered, You are lucky, dear. Not many people find someone who believes in their dreams the way he does. Oda. Maya smiled softly. I am starting to believe that too. Once they were alone again, Lucas took a small step closer. There is one more thing, he said, reaching into his jacket pocket. He pulled out the folded napkin, the one with their 5 rules. The ink was faint, the paper worn from being opened too many times. I kept it, he said, his voice warm. It reminded me of what we started and everything we learned along the way. Lo. He opened it, smoothing it out carefully on the display counter. Rule number 5, he read aloud. No catching feelings. Then he took a pen from his coat and drew a clean line through it. Beneath it he wrote slowly, Rule number 5, tell the truth. Maya covered her mouth, a tear slipping down her cheek. Lucas. He looked at her, his tone firm but tender. The truth is, I love you. I do not know when it started, maybe years ago, but it is the one thing I am sure of now. Lo. The air between them stilled. Outside, the rain stopped completely, leaving only the faint hum of traffic beyond the glass. Maya reached forward, touching the napkin gently. Her fingers brushed his, and she whispered, Then I guess it is my turn to tell the truth. He waited, his heart in his throat. I love you too, she said quietly. And I think, deep down, I always did. Lucas let out a breath he did not realize he was holding. They stood there, smiling through tears, the napkin lying between them, creased, smudged, imperfect, but real. In that moment, the gallery lights glowed brighter, catching on the framed painting that had started it all. The words beneath it read, Friendship feels like falling in love. And now, standing together at last, both of them knew what it truly meant. The next morning, sunlight spilled across the city like a promise. The storm had passed, leaving the streets washed clean and bright. For the first time in months, Maya woke up without the heaviness that had been sitting quietly inside her. She made coffee, humming softly as she packed her sketchbook into her bag. There was a different kind of anticipation in her chest tone that felt both new and deeply familiar. Across town, Lucas stood in front of the same café where their story had begun. The sign above the window still flickered, the smell of roasted coffee beans drifting into the street. He checked his watch, his pulse steady but hopeful. The small napkin, their old contract, was tucked neatly inside his coat pocket, folded one last time. When Maya arrived, her eyes lit up at the sight of him. "You picked this place on purpose," she said, smiling. "Of course," he replied. "I thought we should finish the story where it started." They ordered 2 coffees, sat by the same window, and watched the morning unfold. For a while, they just talked about the children's art show, about the new gallery project, about everything and nothing. It felt natural, easy, real. Then Lucas leaned forward, his tone softer. "Maya, I have something I want to ask you." She tilted her head. "What is it?" He reached into his coat and unfolded the napkin again. The words, "Rule number 5, tell the truth," still stood out in his handwriting. "Do you remember this?" he asked. "How could I forget?" she said, laughing gently. Lucas's expression grew more serious, though his eyes stayed kind. "You once told me that love is about kindness and honesty. So, I am going to be honest now. I love you, Maya. Not as a part of a story or a pretend moment. I love you for real, and I want to build something true with you." Her breath caught as he reached into his pocket again, not for a ring box, but for a small key. He placed it in her hand. "It is not a proposal yet. It is a key to the new studio next to the gallery. I want it to be our space, for your art, for my designs, for us to create together." Maya looked down at the key, then back up at him, her eyes glistening. "Lucas, this is—" She paused, smiling through tears. "This is more real than any ring." He chuckled softly. "We can talk about the ring later." They both laughed, the kind of laughter that felt like healing. Outside, people passed by, unaware of the quiet miracle unfolding inside the café. Maya reached across the table, covering his hand with hers. "You know," she said, "when this all started, I thought we were just pretending. I thought if I kept my heart safe, I would not get hurt. But the truth is, falling for you never felt like losing control. It felt like coming home." Lucas's voice was low. "Then let us stay home, together." They finished their coffee in comfortable silence, the kind that only exists between 2 people who no longer need to prove anything. When they stepped outside, the city shimmered beneath the morning sunday. Lucas took her hand as they crossed the street, and the simple gesture said everything that words could not. Later that evening, at the gallery, a new plaque had been added beside her painting. It read, "Dedicated to everyone who learned that sometimes love begins with friendship." Beneath it, a small framed napkin sat in glass their 5 rules, the final one crossed out and rewritten in bright ink. Tell the truth. The crowd at the opening night clapped as Maya gave a short speech, thanking the community, the children, and one particular friend who turned kindness into something lasting. When she looked at Lucas in the front row, he smiled, his eyes saying what words no longer needed to. As the lights dimmed and the music swelled, Maya whispered to herself, "No more pretending, just love." Outside, the city lights reflected against the gallery windows. Somewhere between laughter and quiet, between art and memory, their story had found its truth, and it was only the beginning. 1 year later, the morning sun touched every corner of the small garden behind the gallery. The air smelled of roses and fresh paint, the kind of scent that carried both beauty and effort. Rows of chairs lined the path, filled with familiar faces, children from the art class, friends from the community center, and a few members of Lucas's family. The laughter was soft and genuine, carried by the breeze. Maya stood behind the arched doorway, wearing a simple white dress that flowed gently around her. Her hair was pinned loosely, a few strands brushing against her cheeks. She held a small bouquet of wildflowers, wrapped in a ribbon painted by her students. Her hands trembled slightly, but her smile was calm. Mrs. Thompson leaned in and whispered, "Are you ready, dear?" Maya took a slow breath. More than ready. Out in the garden, Lucas waited by the altar. He wore a navy suit and a tie the same shade of blue as Maya's first art smock. In his hand was a small folded piece of paper, the same napkin that had followed them through every twist of their story. The ink was faded now, but the last line still read clear. Rule number 5, tell the truth. When the music began, everyone turned to see Maya walk down the aisle. The children clapped, a few of them holding handmade paper flowers. Lucas's eyes softened the moment he saw her. Every step she took felt like a memory being rewritten. No longer a performance, no longer a contract, just truth. When she reached him, he whispered, "You look like home." She laughed quietly, her eyes shining. and you look like the reason I stopped running." The ceremony was simple. There were no elaborate speeches, no showy gestures. When it came time for vows, Lucas unfolded the napkin and held it between them. "This," he said, "started as a contract between two friends, pretending to be something we were not. But every word we wrote taught me who I want to be. I do not want rules anymore. I only want honesty and the chance to love you without pretending." Maya's voice trembled as she replied, "You taught me that love does not need perfection. It just needs courage and kindness. And somehow, you gave me both." Coming kolka. The audience was silent as they exchanged rings, simple silver bands that caught the sunlight just right. When Lucas kissed her, the children cheered, throwing handfuls of paper petals into the air. Laughter filled the garden, bright and unrestrained. After the ceremony, Maya and Lucas walked through the gallery one last time before the reception. Her painting still hung in the center. Friendship feels like falling in love, but now beside it was a new addition. A framed photograph of the community art class, the children holding brushes high, and a small brass plate beneath that read, "In honor of love that began with kindness." Lucas slipped his arm around her shoulders. "So, Mrs. Stone," he said playfully, "what happens to rule number 5 now?" She looked up at him, her smile soft. "We keep it," she said. "But now it means this: always tell the truth about love." They stepped outside together, hand in hand. The late afternoon sun turned everything gold. Music floated from the garden, where friends were waiting, and the city beyond the trees shimmered with life. As they walked toward the laughter, Maya whispered, "We started with a lie and ended with the truth." Lucas squeezed her hand gently. "And I would do it all again if it led me back to you. Come on." And for the first time, they both understood that love, when it is real, is never about pretending. It is about choosing each other, every single day, in the quiet truth of forever.